How's everyone doing? We are back live with our second edition of the live stream, and we have actually broken the curse because we are back. We're back, and hopefully now we will keep this going. So today I'm alone. My name is Aditya, and I am co-founder of Kodomo. We are the creators of Potato Pirates, and so this is actually, I hope we keep this going because this is the first of a two-part series that we're going to be running, talking specifically about how to design a card game or design a product and take it live on Kickstarter. So it's a two-part series that covers how to run a Kickstarter campaign. And so today, the focus with the first part of the campaign or first part of this two-part series is going to be around product development. And I'm just going to be talking you through some of the tools and tips and techniques that we use. Of course, if you're familiar with our work, you would know that we build card games, right? So I'm not going to be covering specifically about, a card game. I'm just going to be talking to you more in generic terms. So it is pretty lonely because I'm here alone today. So feel free to drop in your questions in the chat if you are with us. So I guess without wasting any more time, let's get started. So I'm just going to share my screen. So I need you to enable sharing screen. All right, so while that is happening, I'll just walk you through, basically what I'll be talking to you about. I'll give you a quick background of, who we are, what we do, and then that'll be followed by, basically like a 13-step, I guess, 13 steps to delivering a product, right? So let's get started. So again, we are Kodomo. We are a Singapore-based education technology company, and we are in the business of delivering delightful educational experiences through innovation and fun. And that's really the premise of how Potato Pirates was born. And I'll talk you through that some more. So that's the founding team, me and my two co-founders, Tak Leong and Jia Shen. Usually only see me. I guess I'm the talkative one. So my background is in software engineering, and my two co-founders are also from similar fields but different. Tak Leong is a product engineer, and Jia Shen is an architect, actually. But I think the shared love for innovation is what brought us together. So I'm going to give you a quick background of like how we started, and then I'll talk to you about how Potato Pirates actually came about. So this is actually where we started. This was the the entrepreneurship center in our university, in Singapore University of Technology and Design. So we were the pioneer batch of grads. So the university also was like a startup at that time. They literally just refurbished an entire, well, didn't really refurbish, they just converted one of the classrooms to an innovation space for startups. And that little island table was where we started. Now, even the university has an entire building dedicated to startups, and we have moved out to another place. So humble beginnings. And we started working together as students on this hardware software project. It was like it was a final year project when we were still students in university, and it was like a child safety tracking device, a physical safety tracker for children. And throughout the entire journey, I think that's what really got us started into like the field of education. And that's what really got us inspired. That's me with one of my teammates sitting in front of what we call an affinity diagram. It's a method, or it's a tool used in the design thinking framework, which I won't really be talking about so much, but I will be mentioning that word more on and off throughout the next hour. So yeah, hardware software project, which basically was really how we got started. And we did secure some seed funding from the university. We even filed for a provisional patent for something we were doing with the app. But throughout this like 6-8 months that we spent doing this, we found our passion in education through talking to so many educators, young parents, and even young children. And we realized that there's this gap in the educational market that we wanted to bridge. And we didn't actually know how we were going to do that, but we knew that it was something that we wanted to make a difference to. So yeah, that's how we started, right? And with that, we started running workshops for kids. And in these workshops, we used to try and give them an experience of fun, delight, tinkering, like building something, and basically just a real world experience of how like new innovations should be built. And I guess it was something that we always felt like we wanted more of as as students and growing up. And we were just trying to introduce this whole real world innovation mindset to these kids through through doing coding classes, through doing like hardware classes, a lot of design classes and things like that. So the screen in the bottom, middle bottom is actually a person, one of the students playing Minecraft. So Minecraft is actually a great tool to use to teach computer science or programming because kids love it. And the way Minecraft works, it just allows kids to hack, Minecraft to become better at it. So, okay, so then the next thing that happened with us was we really just figured out that okay, there are some of these issues that we want to solve, and these we identified while we were doing so much work with these with these schools and with these kids. So we realized that there was this gap where teachers don't really know how to teach computer science, and parents need help with it. Kids already are addicted to screens, and yeah, and like they struggle with the syntax. So like the main problem with programming is like the logic is rudimentary. It can be understood by anyone and everyone, regardless of age, right? But what puts people off is the fact that there is so much jargon, right, with computer science, and it just puts people off. And it shouldn't be that way, right? So with that, with just that objective, we were just thinking that we want to democratize computer science and make it accessible to anyone and everyone, regardless of age. And with just that, we went on this quest without knowing how we were going to do that, and we ended up creating Potato Pirates. So that's what you're seeing on the screen in front of you, which is just right and left analysis. I need to shut that off. So just a right and left analysis of what we are doing on Potato Pirates and what is taught in computer science, right? So on the left, you're seeing 3 different ways of writing the same thing on code, right? With code, like using Python, Swift, or Java. And on the right, we are seeing how it's done in Potato Pirates. So obviously the one on the right is more palatable. So since we don't have like a lot of viewers right now, we only have like 2 people watching right now. I'm happy for you guys to ask questions. I'll take them at any time. Let's see if our viewership goes up, and then we'll see how this is gonna go. I did want to keep it more conversational. So yeah, feel free to drop your questions whenever you want. So with that, we went, we went on to Kickstarter and we put this up there. And like these are just screen grabs I took from Kickstarter showing games from Singapore that are most backed or most funded. So Potato Pirates, the first game over here on the screen, and Enter the Spudnet in the bottom of that same on the most backed and most funded. You can see Enter the Spudnet and Potato Pirates. So this was taken before I took the screen grab before we released our third game. Not sure how it fares, although it did raise like significantly lower than the first two. So Potato Pirates has seen decent success in crowdfunding. So these are most funded and most backed. So we are one of the top few games from Singapore on Kickstarter. So some milestones. These are our 3 games, right? So this is what we have accomplished with Potato Pirates so far. We have 3 games in our product catalog now. We have the first game that teaches computer science basics. We have the second game, Enter the Spudnet, and the third game that teaches an in-depth computer science approach, which is called Battle Chips. And we just actually launched that 2 months ago. So collectively, Potato Pirates has raised over 600,000 on Kickstarter. We've sold 50,000 units worldwide, and the game is actually available in 27 different languages. So that's actually a really cool story or an anecdote that I wanted to share about how this 27 languages actually came about. So when we first launched the game, we basically, well, we were just we weren't sure how it was going to go, so we just put that we did spend some time building an audience, but after that we still weren't sure whether it was going to work or not. But when we launched, we did see a great reception, and people actually started asking us like, hey, can you make this game in like, you know, German or French or Spanish? So our backers were very keen on having this game in their language, especially because their kids were not so well versed with Potato Pirates. No, so well versed in English, so like playing Potato Pirates would be difficult for them. So we said like, we are first time creators, we don't really know what, you know, how manufacturing is done, let alone like manufacturing in multiple languages, and we weren't going to do that. So but what we did say was, we'll put all our card text online, right? So we created a Google sheet out of this, and we put it up, and we said, if you so desire, you can create a translation in your own language for this. And we just put that up and went to bed. The next morning, we saw that we had 15 languages, right? And so with 15 languages, we were like blown away by that. And that has now increased to 27 languages. With the second game, we were like, yeah, this is a bit too complicated. It's probably not going to be worth anyone's effort to translate this. But that, again, has, I think, been translated into like 20 over languages. And the same is happening with the third game. So Potato Pirates actually also has been, you know, gone on to be featured in, you know, some of the biggest publications in the world, the New York Times, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Smithsonian Magazine, to name a few, as you can see on the screen. And this, to me, is, excuse me, the most, I guess, rewarding part of doing Potato Pirates. Like, even if we were not to release another game in the future, even if we, you know, even if we fold the company, I think it would be, I would be satisfied, because this really goes to show that whatever we are doing is working and it's globally recognized, you know. So that global recognition for us is like, you know, it's a huge honor. And and the main reason I would attribute to being featured in all these places is this, right? So this is a pre and post analysis that we've done with most of the workshops that we have conducted. Because so this is a sample size of over 2,000 people, and we've done like a before and after analysis. So when they come in, we ask them to write in like 7 simple questions or something. But how did you come up with a game in the first place? Yeah, I am just getting to that. So this is I'm getting to that right after this. So this is basically just showing you that the game actually works and 9 in 10 people actually understand the concept. So with that, let's shift gears and start talking about Kickstarter. All right. So what is Kickstarter and what is crowdfunding? So crowdfunding is really getting your project funded by raising small amounts of money from a large amounts of people, typically through the internet. And for us, in our case, like in most cases in crowdfunding, crowdfunding is not equity based, means people don't get a stake in your company. They're basically just pre-ordering your product. So that allows you to get all the orders in before you actually take it live or take it to production. So some facts and figures about Kickstarter, and that's so let me walk you through these numbers. So through crowdfunding or through Kickstarter, there's over 3.92 billion being raised. And this number is probably over 4 billion by now, because these figures are not the most latest. 20.34 million is the most any crowdfunding campaign has ever raised. And 15 million people have backed projects on Kickstarter. 220,000 is the highest number of backers, highest number of backers that any crowdfunding project has ever raised. So on Kickstarter, there have been over 400,000 projects with almost slightly more than a one-third success rate. So what that means is a 1 in 3 projects succeeds and 2 in 3 fail. Those are not good odds, but which is why I think we decided to do this live stream to, walk you guys through it. So 321 millionaires. So Kickstarter has actually spawned 321 millionaires, and the quickest million anyone ever made on Kickstarter was 19 minutes. So those are some facts and figures for you. And so the way we look at it, there's 4 secret ingredients to a successful campaign: great product, big audience, awesome video, constant buzz. So today I'll just be focusing on the first one, which is talking about a great product. So so now if you've forgotten anything I said and everything I said before this, that's great, because this is what you should be taking away from what we're talking about today. These 3 words are very important: so desirability, feasibility, and viability. So innovation is at the center of these 3 things, which is desirable, feasible, viable. So what that means is desirable is what people want. Feasible is what is basically what you can execute with technology or with your skill sets or with your team skills. And viable is what you can sell. So what people want, do they want it? Can you make it? Can you sell it? Right? These are the 3 things that determine what innovation is. And actually innovation is different from invention. And the key difference between an innovation and an invention is that inventions are not always desirable. They may be new and groundbreaking, but it's just that people don't really want them, which is why they don't change people's lives. So remember the difference between innovation and invention, and remember these 3 words: desirable, feasible, and viable. So we use the design innovation model, which consists of 2 double diamonds. And the reason why we live by this process so I guess diligently is because when you're doing innovation, you're going beyond the scope of human knowledge. So solving a problem is difficult, right? Solving a problem with an unknown solution is even more difficult, right? But when you're doing innovation, you are solving for an unknown solution with an unknown problem, which becomes exponentially more difficult. And the design innovation model, or the design thinking model, basically is a set of tools that you can employ to help you make sense of it and help you move into uncharted territory with ease. Okay, so I won't be going, like I said, won't be going into too much detail about this, but I'll be talking about some of the I guess methods that you could use from design thinking into this. So let's start about why are we getting a history lesson. So I was setting some context and giving you some I guess, overview of how we started. But now I'm talking to you about like how like that entire journey happened, right? So for us, it was really about changing computer science, and that's where we started. And we started with why, and we wanted to just make computer science more accessible to people. And we had no idea how we were going to do it, but we knew that we wanted to do something like that. So that's really where the starting point is, and I think it's always the same regardless of who you are and what you're trying to achieve. So for us, it was really about starting with why, and think about like other companies that you may be familiar with. Like for Apple, they just happen to make game-changing products, um, but their why is really about thinking different and really challenging, the status quo and pushing the boundaries of that. So start with your why, and our why was just making computer science fun and accessible to everyone, right? That was our why, and we didn't really know how we were going to do that. So there's a great saying. So this is Simon Sinek. He writes books and talks about innovation. He says people don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it, and that's so true. And regardless of whatever you're doing, that's really how it is. So once you've sort of figured out your why and crafted it and written it down, then it's about identifying the opportunity space. What is a problem that you've identified that you want to fix? And for us, it was really this, what you're seeing on the screen, where it's about really deconstructing computer science and making that a little more accessible, because it's so difficult and people, fizzle out. So we started looking at tools like, the CS Unplugged, which is a movement in computer science, teaching computer science without a computer. We started trying to think of like how we can piggyback on this movement and make it even better and more accessible to people. So once we had sort of figured out our opportunity space and figured out the why and the opportunity space, then we started talking about who's like the audience, who are we actually trying to solve this problem for. So that's a pivotal part of this process, because you need to really figure out who the audience is. And for us, it was educators, gamers, and parents. And although this does sound a bit distributed, we have since figured out that this is actually true. So after doing like user studies, we have figured out that there are people who buy our game, for using in a classroom. There are people who buy our game as gamers, and then there are also people buying as parents to teach their kids computer science. And with this information, we basically charted it out into a stakeholder diagram, right? Which is really just like an XY graph, a Cartesian plane split into 4 quadrants. And these are the 4 quadrants of the stakeholder analysis. And it runs on 2 planes. One is interest, and the other is influence, right? So what you are trying to identify, who are the people for you who have the highest interest and highest influence over what you're doing. And that's very important for you to know who you're trying to like serve, but it's also very important for you to know like who you're not trying to serve, right? And whatever comes in the middle. So it sort of goes in like a Z shape, right? Key player, keep satisfied, show consideration, least important. So is BackerKit setup almost complete? So God of Sound, what do you mean? Do you mean like for our latest project, or what's, I don't understand this context. Anyways, I'll wait for you to clarify that. So I'll move along. So key players, keep satisfied, show consideration, and least important. So this is what it looks like for us, right? So for key player, it's like STEM educators, tech-savvy parents, and code schools, similar to what I've shown earlier. But I think what's also more important is like to know who is not gonna be like your customer, and like people who are like hardcore gamers who love like playing RPG games may not be like our audience for Potato Pirates. So that is something we had to know, because like it's okay for people not to like your product, but you need to know that they are not the ones that you're trying to serve in the first place. So that way you don't try and serve everyone, because that's never going to happen. So define the opportunity. So the opportunity was, for us, like, very simple. And this is a this is a great meme that we drew out. And this is Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, where he says, "Say what again, MF?" So this is really what we were trying to solve for, right? Like, say syntax error again. The reason why, like, it's so troubling or so difficult for people to get into the world of computer science is, like, it's a sensory overload, right? You're bombarded with, like, everything not working, and you are so you're so overwhelmed, and you don't even know why it's happening. So this is what we, wanted to succinctly portray. This is the opportunity for us, right? Where we don't want people to be overwhelmed with, like, errors and, like, having no clue what's going wrong, and just having fun learning computer science, right? So pain points in 10 words or less, right, is very important, because this allows you to remember that this is the mission, this is the opportunity, right? Um, so this builds on, like, finding your why, and finding the opportunity. This is you defining the opportunity once you have figured out, like, who the audience is, right? And defining it in 10 words or less. And that, for us, like I've said, is really democratizing computer science and making it available and accessible to everyone, regardless of age. Of course, like, I'm just saying it out loud, so it's not 10 words, but that's really what it is for us. And it's never changed, right? Over the years, it's always remained the same. Once that is done, then we move on to trying to understand the market. And the reason you want to do this, for sure, is really to see, like, how it's being done out there and what you want to be doing better. So, like, some of the tools that kids use, especially kids use for, like, learning coding, or, like, schools use to teach kids, or, like, parents use to teach kids coding, are, like, iPad apps, and, like, other like, physical games that have, like, robots, like the Dash robot or the Cubetto. That's the on the bottom right. It's the Lego EV3. On the top left, the Scratch Junior is an iPad app that teaches you computer science, or, like, teaches you basic code concepts through just playing the game. Yeah. So, and when we understood all this, we were like, okay, we don't want to encourage more screen time. We want to push for more, like, offline engagement. um, so at least we understood, like, well, that's what we were trying to do differently. And with robot turtles was, I guess, the first the first of its kind um, in this genre of games, of computer science games. But Robot Turtles was specifically designed for a younger audience of between 3 to 8 years old. But we knew that we wanted to make our game for an age group that was, yeah, for all ages, a game that you could have fun, while on a game night with friends, or, like, having drinks with friends, or whatever not. So that's what, like, for us, was the difference, and crafting our own niche was very important through this. We also understood that, like, a lot of people are learning computer science online, but there's a huge dropout rate, right? There's a huge dropout rate with MOOCs, like Coursera, and other, like, Udemy styled courses. So this is a bonus slide. I'm just going to stop here for a few seconds. So these are, like, all slides. These are all, I would say, aggregator websites where you can find a lot of cool products that you never knew existed there in the world. So there's Cool Hunting, Gear Patrol, Uncrate, cool shit you can buy, excuse my French, Product Hunt, Shut Up and Take My Money, This Is Why I'm Broke. So all these are aggregator websites, and these are really cool for you to see, like, what's out there in the world. But searching on Google Trends also shows you, like, what kind of tools people are searching for, and how often they're searching for it. So then once you're done with that, it's really about crafting the value proposition, right? So value proposition for us was accessibility, continuity, social. So the way I recommend to do this is to really just find, like, 3 keywords that broadly describe the 3 main values that you're trying to add to a user, you're trying to add to people's lives through your product. And for us, it was accessibility, making computer science accessible, continuity, so that they can continue learning on their own, and making it social, right? And with just that, we could then start to plug things into this like value proposition framework, which is like this, right? So which is like, for which user who wants what kind of a reason to buy our product is what kind of product that provides what key benefit. And unlike your main competitors, your product does what key differentiation, right? So for us, that looks something like this. For educators who want a more inclusive and engaging way to teach computer science, Potato Pirates is a card game that teaches fundamentals of programming. Unlike other online coding websites, Potato Pirates accelerates the learning experience by decoupling syntax and logic. And that's really what we have gone on to prove and show that we actually do execute that key differentiation of decoupling syntax and logic, and therefore accelerating learning experience. But earlier in the slides, I had showed you that in your stakeholder analysis, you may have multiple key stakeholders, right? Your key players. So, which is why you would need to craft a different value proposition for the different stakeholders that you may have. So for parents, it would look slightly different, right? Because they're looking for an accessible way to teach coding to their kids, and that's really what they're looking for. And the key differentiation is that it bridges the online and offline and doesn't encourage more screen time for their children, right? It's not just another app that adds on to the screen time. So then before you move any further, right, you need to validate what you're doing, right? And you need to validate this using the most fundamental, I guess, like questions that you can ask people. So I cannot recommend this book anymore than I already do, but I will. So the Mom Test is a seminal, pivotal book that is super useful for anyone who's trying to do something new. And the Mom Test is really about trying to ask even your mom for business advice, that even she would be able to give you good advice and honest advice, right? Because if you ever asked your mom something, like if you ever ask, like if I told my mom like 4 or 5 years ago, it's like, Mom, I'm going to like make a game that teaches computer science concepts, and it's going to be a card game. She'd be like, okay, that's good. That's nice. Yeah, parents always want to be encouraging, but it doesn't mean it's a good idea, right? So the Mom Test is really about trying to validate, whatever you are trying to achieve through asking proper, clear questions. So it's not a really big book. It's like 100 to 150-ish pages. And I mean, I just like went through it in literally 1-2 hours. But you always have to take notes because they give really practical advice on how to talk to people and ask questions. There is a video on YouTube. If you search the Mom Test, you'll find it. But I'm actually not sharing audio with you right now on the screen share. So I don't want to waste too much time. I'm just going to move along. But definitely watch that video. It really puts it into perspective everything that I've said, right? So remember, the key component to this validation is not trying to pitch your product. You're not trying to pitch your product to people and say like, oh, I'm trying to do this. Don't you think it's a cool idea? Like you're trying to squeeze, like praise out for yourself. But the more important thing is really without showing your cards, without showing your hand, you need to show people that, okay, I'm just trying to ask questions, right? So, and that's when you get more candid feedback. Okay, and now I want to talk to you about something that's very close to our hearts, and that's called rapid prototyping. So rapid prototyping is the art of, really quickly designing the key elements of your product and testing it, right? So we had this idea for using a card game to teach computer science, and we had this idea over lunch. I still remember it. Like we were just talking, bouncing ideas around, and over lunch this idea came about. So we were like, okay, let's go up to our office and try it. So we went to our office, that same island table I showed you at the start of this, and we found, a really old, you can see it's really old poker card set, and we just started writing with markers on it. Okay, this will be a for loop, this will be a while loop, this will be if, and then we created like simple D&D type of characters, and then we just started playing. So we played our first game of Potato Pirates on the same day we had the idea of creating this game, right? So we finished lunch, and I think by like 4 or 5 o'clock we were already playing our first game of Potato Pirates, and then we just started moving things around. We're like, oh, this can be changed, this can be changed, this can be changed. And that's really the essence of rapid prototyping, and then as things progress, you'll be able to add more value and add more meat, to the skeleton of it. So this is a level up. So here we started printing things out. And as you can see over there, we stapled it. We stapled these printouts onto the cards, onto the poker cards. And now as you can see, we are trying to do different things like doing backspaces, which is like surprise cards. And we did end up having like the surprise cards inside Potato Pirates, the game. And then the control cards doing the while loop, and character cards, so we bought card sleeves, and we did stapling on, like, it's very it's very well, not ugly, but it just gets the job done, right? So, and that's really the essence of iterating design and concepts, because this was really just for internal testing. So there are 4 key rules of rapid prototyping, and the first one is to recreate the user experience. And what that means is you're trying to recreate you're trying to recreate the key elements of the UX, or the user experience, through this product, right? So, and that's really what you're trying to do with rapid prototyping. And for us, it was about creating a card game, which is like the key element of that is having cards to hold. It doesn't matter that these cards are just poker cards with things written on them, right? The second rule is to do and don't think, because people spend too much time thinking but don't do, and that's why nothing gets accomplished, right? And that really allows you to accomplish a lot more. When you start to do things, you start to see progress, and you start to see where you're going wrong, right? And the third rule is to iterate and not fixate. And rapid prototyping allows you to do that, because each of you, like, let's say you're working in a team of 3 or 4, and each of you comes up with say 1 or 2 ideas, and everyone thinks their idea is the best, right? But it's easier to convince other people firstly with data, by testing these ideas out. So it's very easy to test this idea out with another friend of yours and determine whether or not this idea is working or not. The second is, if someone has spent 4 months on an idea, they will be fixated on it. But if someone spends like 30 minutes on it, it's way easier to convince them that this may not be the right thing to do. So rapid prototyping allows for iteration and stops you from fixating on ideas. And the fourth is celebrating failure. And celebrating failure is very important, because even when you figure out that something's not working, that is a box that you can check off and say, okay, this is not going to work, let's try these, right? So you always have a finite number of ideas that you're trying out, right? And if something doesn't work, that's great, because now you've figured out what can possibly work. And the better part of it is you can figure out what element inside that idea didn't work and what element inside of that idea did work. So you can try incorporating you can try eliminating what doesn't work from the other ideas you have, and incorporating what incorporating what does work. All right. So those are the 4 rules of rapid prototyping. And the main reason we do rapid prototyping is because we want to maximize the rate of learning by minimizing the time to try ideas, right? So what that means is that the more you try ideas, the more you are going to learn. And there's no, there's no substitute for that. So rapid prototyping looks like this, where you're trying to add value at every step of the way, instead of trying to build everything in one go, because most of the time that doesn't work, right? So there's a difference between the traditional waterfall method and like being an agile team where you're trying to deliver value every step of the way. Right. And then you document your work. So for us, we went through so many iterations of Potato Pirates, but we always kept track of what we changed, what the artwork ideas were, and how it progressed and whatnot. So this was the final version 5.09 that we shipped, and like that was what became the final Potato Pirates game. If time permits, I will show you our documentation for how we do our documentation today. We use Notion, and it's a really powerful tool. So when you're first starting out with ideation, it's a bit difficult to get started. So this activity called C-Sketch or collaborative sketching is really cool. And a lot of times what happens is like if someone gives an idea, you just start to discuss it immediately without it really trying to understand it. So collaborative sketching is really cool because it defers the judgment and it defers the critique of ideas, right? So how it works is you sit in a circle, and the only rule is that everyone has to have a different color pen, because that allows you to track who did what. And you take a paper, typically like an A3 size paper, so you have more space, and you divide it into 3 parts, and you draw 3 ideas, right? And typically in the first phase, it's like 10 to 15 minutes. And once that time is elapsed, you move that forward to the next person. The next person gets 3 minutes or 5 minutes. You can do this however you want. We usually give 3, so 1 minute for each idea. You get 3 minutes to add on to all of those 3 ideas, like add on your remix or your ideas onto those, right? So you're piggybacking ideas, and there's no discussion. So it's a silent activity. You can't talk until you receive your original piece of paper back into your hands. So everyone has had a go at trying to add value to your idea, and you have done so to everyone else's. And once that is done, that's when you step back and say like, okay, this is what happened. That was cool. And this is something we did for Potato Pirates. As you can see, like we were trying to figure out like what kind of like characters we wanted in the game. There were some pigs, cows, sheep, like it's a farm theme. There are some other themes out there. But I think the potato one eventually was what we settled on. As you can see, there was some elements of piracy over here. So that's how we were starting out, I guess. Some really great product development tools, right, for collaboration. So Notion is a great place to document all your work and letting it be like the source of truth for really everything and anything related to what you're trying to do. I'll show you our Notion like right after this. I will give you a walkthrough of how we've set it up. I mean, our team has done a great job in doing that. So Rolljack is actually our second product line that we are launching next month. It's a great online brainstorming and our ideation tool. So if you're working with people across borders and you want to set up a quick brainstorming session and like facilitate like a collaborative sketching activity, Rolljack is the place for you, because you can execute that in a matter of minutes, and then you can debrief and like talk through what everyone has done. Of course, Slack or Discord are great places for you to just have your team chat and talk about the product that you're building. Airtable is a great, really powerful tool, because Airtable has this thing called blocks, and the blocks in Airtable actually allow you to. So how we use it is so Airtable is like literally like an Excel sheet, right? And what we do is in an Excel table, in a table, we write down the name of the card, the card effect, and any other associated card text, and we can upload an image to that table as well, to that row as well. And using blocks, we can automate. So in blocks, we give the template of what our card should look like, our game card, and blocks can generate a list of all our cards based on whatever we have fed into the table, right? So it's a one-click export, and we can export all our cards, and then we just print it out and we start playing. So It's a great tool for us to prototype, and we have used it ever since I think the first game. So the second, and for Enter the Spotnet and for Battle Chips, we used Airtable like for every single change that we made to the game. Yeah, so we just went on blocks and we just exported everything, and it was really good. You can even go on to Google. I'll be talking more about this later. If you search how to design a card game, you will see an article that we've written, and a lot of these tools are listed over there as well. I'll show you that as well. Miro is a digital whiteboard. It's allows you to do brainstorming online as well. If that floats your boat, definitely check it out. I think a lot of people are familiar with Google Drive. It's just a cloud storage, and you can upload all your working documents on it. We still use it for all our work. Everything related to Potato Pirates is on our Google Drive. The reason I put Typeform up there is because it's a great way to get surveys and gather feedback. But at the same time, Typeform now allows you to accept payments. So if you're building like a product that you want to figure out whether people will actually be willing to pay money for this, it's the easiest way for you to validate whether that is something that people are willing to do or not. I also just realized that the chat is disabled. So I'm not sure, like my team must have done that. So I'm happy to answer questions. If not, like can leave the chat disabled also. We can take answers like through email or whatever. Okay, then comes the most important part about getting feedback. Okay, so I've just been told that chat is not disabled. So for me, it was disabled. Okay, so now I'm just catching up on all your things. Do you remember some of the ideas that came out at this stage? Which stage was that? You mean like at the C sketch stage? Yeah, actually, if you're asking about the collaborative sketching phase, yeah, this, like, I think I showed you some of these photos, right? Honestly, at this stage, I remember very clearly that like the pirate theme was the most important, but we didn't want to make a generic pirate game, and we were trying to think of what the most inanimate object was that we could make into a pirate. And I don't know why, but the first thing that came to our minds was potatoes. And then everyone's like, yeah, that's perfect, because it's an alliteration, so it's Potato Pirates. And yeah, the name just stuck. So you get feedback, and we were at the get feedback section, and getting feedback is the most important thing. So we've done a lot of, we've gotten so much feedback from user testing. I showed you at the start of it, like the statistics with like over 2,000 people, right? And most of what you're seeing here on the screen, you don't recognize some of the colors of the cards because these are all prototypes, right? And these are all photos of us testing with people before we actually had a game out. And we spent a lot of weekends, organizing workshops and like volunteering. Yes, you do have a very sticky name, Potato Pirates. And volunteering for, running community workshops and things like that with people, because we just wanted to validate the idea and also wanted to like provide some value by teaching fundamentals of computer science, right? And it was always a riot. Like people had so much fun with it, and we knew that we were doing something good, and that just gave us a lot of confidence. And finally, I think really it's about establishing your success metrics, right? So for us, it was like proving how much of computer science concepts we can incorporate into our game and yet retain the fun element of it. Well, at least we think it's fun. I hope you think it's fun too. So for us, that was the first step of like the success metric, really trying to figure out what kind of concepts we could cover in the game. And yeah, I mean, this is like a closer look at it. So we have for loops, while loops, if else, some algorithmic thinking. And finally, I've already showed you this, but we did like the pre and post survey. So we defined our success metric. Yeah. So sorry, I'm cutting myself off midway, but that's a very good question. Isn't it dangerous for people to give the money before they even see the product, and what if they run away with it? That's a very valid question. I, for one, back a lot of crowdfunding projects, and I have actually lost money. I have actually lost money on Kickstarter where people are, one, either running a scam, two, severely underestimate the funds that are required to deliver the product. And that usually happens a lot more with hardware products, right? So with hardware products, Kickstarter does do a lot more due diligence. A lot of hardware products are found on Indiegogo, which is another crowdfunding platform. But even on Indiegogo, I have been part of a few projects that just completely stop updating, completely stop, like they just gone off the face of the earth. And it was basically some like mini computers that I had bought because I'm a sucker for these things. So this is one of them that I bought. This is a GPD, right? It's a small little 7-inch computer. It's a fully functional like laptop. It fits into like your hand. This is a great product, but I've backed a few other of these kind of products, and some of them never deliver. So there is definitely an inherent risk, and that's why like on every Kickstarter campaign, like if you read under the at the footnotes of the Kickstarter, there will always be a section on there is a related risk to Kickstarter projects, because as Kickstarter backers, you're backing something new and innovative, knowing that there is a slight risk or a slight possibility that this project will not deliver. So now that we've done 2 games and delivered them successfully, and we are in the midst of delivering our 3rd game, we sort of have established ourselves. Is that a computer for a cat? Well, let me try putting it in front of our office cat, and then we'll see if she uses it. And yeah, just verify and validate, whether it's working with people. And this is just like some screenshots of people using Potato Pirates all over the world and having fun with it. And that's, for us, the most important thing. Right? As long as people are loving it, we're doing something right, and that's what we want. This is a screen grab I took from Amazon. Our first product, Potato Pirates, sells on it, and as you can see, it's got a 4.5 rating, which I think is pretty cool. And I think I'm very satisfied with seeing that people all over the world are having fun with it. People who don't even know that it's a Kickstarter product and whatnot, they're just buying it on retail. That's great, right? That's really why we are doing this. And yeah, these are some screenshots from our own website. So 5-star ratings from everyone. Couldn't ask for anything more, honestly. So I think that basically is the essence of what I wanted to cover. So going from starting with why, to defining your audience, to really defining your mission in 10 words, and then validating your ideas using the mom test. So mom test, again, just want to give again quick shout out to mom test. So go ahead and try and read that book, and then just doing rapid prototyping and trying to figure out whether you're on the right path by keep testing it with people. That's it. The process remains unchanged regardless of what you're trying to build, whether or not it's a card game like a deck builder, or if it's a symmetric or asymmetric play, if it's resource management. It doesn't matter what kind of game you're designing, or it doesn't matter if you're designing a computer for a cat, right? The process remains largely unchanged. And yeah, happy product development. So yeah, step 9, document your work. Thanks for reminding me. Okay, so let me just quickly stop screen share and restart it. I'll show you our Notion. All right, so this is what our Notion homepage looks like. And so we have 2 product lines. Let's go into Potato Pirates. So this is what we've set it up like. It was amazing, right? It feels actually good to be looking at it. And if we go into our products, we have an entire document called game design document. And this massive document is really where is the source of truth for everything that we've done with Potato Pirates Battleships, right? And there's so much content over here. Okay, so all of these things are change logs, right? All of these things are change logs, and basically it shows you what we have changed for every version that we have played, right? And also shows which were external playtests and which were, and the rest are, I guess, internal in-house playtests that we've done. So there's, of course, it's a lot that is inside this document, but the documentation is very important because it really allows you to keep track of what you're doing and how people are responding to it, or how you are responding to your own game, right? So with that, I am done, and thank you so much for joining us on the second ever live stream from Potato Pirates. If there are no questions, thanks Potato Pirates for reiterating all the steps that I've written down, and thanks for all the questions. I sure had fun, and I will see you very soon for the second installment of this two-part series, and I hope that happens sooner than later. All right, cool. With that, I'm out. Thank you so much for joining us today. Cheers. Good morning, good evening, and have a great day. Bye.